the heart and soul behind every business. Stories. Welcome to Business Story of the Week, hosted by me, Joshua Laurie. From setbacks to comebacks, from tragedies to triumphs, we inspire entrepreneurs through conversations that matter. Witness the magic that turns dreams into reality. Whether it's your career, business, or life, your success is always one story away. This is Business Story of the Week.
Hi, this is Cheryl. Welcome to Business Story of the Week.
Fantastic. And that is the lovely Sharael Kolberg. She's our guest for today. And of course, my name is Joshua. I am your host for today. And the question for this episode is it possible to truly disconnect in a world that constantly plugged in? Well, Cheryl is the perfect guest to answer that question. Sharael Kolberg is a nationally published travel writer whose work has appeared in U.S. News and World Report, Quoters, Lonely Planet, Forbes, Rob Report, Sunset, Outside, Thrillist, and so much more. She focuses on adventure, wellness, luxury, and sustainable travel. And today, Cheryl is going to share her experience with us. She's going to share her travel experiences as her insight and everything else in between. Cheryl, thank you for agreeing to come on the show. Thank you for being on here. How are you doing?
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for having me. I'm doing wonderful. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, Cheryl, I'm quite excited with this topic, of course. I feel like everyone out there, and audience and listeners, we all love traveling, right? We all love the joy and the experience that it gives to us. But I want to know what the young Cheryl was like. I want to start this all off. What did the young Cheryl think about traveling and writing? Did she know she was going to travel the world? Did she ever imagine writing books? And did she ever imagine she'd combine both into a career?
Yes, I think
Wow.
so. So I
Wow.
was actually born in Germany. My
Hmm.
dad was in the military and we lived there till I was about 3 years old. And
Hmm.
then we moved to California eventually, which is where I grew up in Northern California. And so my parents had lived in Germany for almost 5 years. So I grew up, even though I'm not like of German descent, I grew up with my parents integrating a lot of the traditions and language of Germany in our household.
Oh,
So it
wow.
was always very exotic for me growing up. And I always dreamt of going to, far-flung destinations because it just gave me a curiosity about the world.
Right.
And then I specifically remember in second grade, my teacher assigned us a creative writing assignment.
Ah.
And she had hand drawn all these different monsters, and we had to pick a monster and give it a story. And I
Okay.
loved taking this inanimate object and bringing it to life. And that was at 7 years
Hmm.
old. So I think it was a natural progression for me to combine travel and writing. And when I went to college for journalism at the University of Hawaii, my passion was I'm going to write for Islands magazine and I'm going to travel the world and visit all these islands and make a living doing it. So,
Wow. Wow,
yeah.
that is very, very cool. Of course, I mean, the dream, right? The dream to go out there in the world, discover everything, and But how did this dream start for you, Cheryl? That's my interesting. That's the next question. Because of course, you found this interest early on, especially with writing as well, and then you decided I'm going to take on the world. I'm going to travel around. When did this all really begin? Was there a particular pivotal moment where you said, okay, I'm going to travel and I'm going to write, I'm going to be a travel writer?
Yes. So I've been a freelance writer for
Hmm.
more than 25 years, like literally right out of college. I was always a freelance writer. I
Wow.
started my career in Hawaii writing
Hmm.
about adventure sports like kayaking and mountain biking and things like sailing. And then continued that. I moved to the San Francisco Bay Area and continued freelancing on this side while I had a full-time job doing high tech PR at the time. So for a long time, I had a full time job and just was a freelancer on the side. And
Right.
that seemed to appease me. But 3 years ago, we had a daughter, and
Hmm.
my daughter went off to college.
Mhm.
And so I finally had the opportunity to do this full time. So
Right.
I've been doing it full time for 3 years and I'm so happy. I absolutely love it. I travel about 2 weeks out of every month.
Wow.
And my husband gets to go with me quite a bit of the time because he works from home. So he can kind
Right.
of work from anywhere.
Uh-huh.
And it's just been amazing. I love exploring new places and sharing that with my readers so that they can get inspired and have the information that they need to go explore those places themselves.
I love it. Cheryl, what were the first few destinations that you went to and the ones that stand out to you the most? And
Well,
what did you get out of them? Like what were the like you think the best lessons and memories that you got out of them?
yeah. Well, the one trip that really sticks out to me was a
Mhm.
couple of years ago. Well, there's a couple of trips, but a couple of years ago, I went to Patagonia, the Chilean side
Oh,
of Patagonia.
yes, yes.
And I really have always been drawn to remote destinations and adventure travel. I love to challenge myself physically and hike and kayak and, do what I can when I'm traveling.
Right,
And Patagonia just was the perfect setting for me.
right.
And I did that trip as part of a press trip for an association called the Adventure Travel Trade Association,
Okay.
ATTA for short. And they promote adventure travel all around the world.
Mhm.
And they work with tour operators and press and try to promote these destinations and do it in a sustainable way so that tourists can give back to the communities that they're traveling in and make sure that they're not being
It's like taking and taking.
disrespectful.
That's it,
Yeah,
right?
disrespectful to the
Disrespectful. Mhm,
destinations.
mhm.
So it was an amazing trip. We got to kayak amongst icebergs
Wow.
and do these hikes to the tops of mountains and through some just picturesque locations. And we got to do a puma trek where we searched for pumas, which we
Mhm,
saw like 6 of them, and it just was so phenomenal. And it's a very hard place to get to, but I think
mhm.
some of those remote locations are just so magical because they're not as impacted by tourism. So that one really stuck out to me. And then the second one that I will never forget is about a year and a half ago, I was on this phenomenal press trip to British Columbia, this remote part on the southeastern section of British Columbia. And it was in the winter. I'm a big skier. I love winter sports, love
Mhm.
the mountains, and we
Uh-huh.
did so many incredible things. We hiked to this amazing frozen waterfall,
Right.
went snowmobiling up this mountain to this like remote um, hut where they served us hot chocolate, and we tried fat biking, and we went to this frozen lake, and everything was so magical. And then on the last day of my trip, we were skiing and I fell, and it wasn't even a big fall,
Okay.
and I broke my leg. And so that
No.
wasn't so great. So, yeah, that's the one thing that I've
That
actually been
really stood
writing
out.
about.
Okay.
Yeah, because being in a remote area, for one thing, we
Oh
were on a
goodness.
kind of a remote area of the mountain, so it took a
Oh
while
no.
for the ski
Oh
patrol to
no.
get to me. And then the town that we were in was too small to do the surgery at the hospital. So then I
Oh,
had
of
to spend the night in
course.
the ER
Yeah.
and then
Oh
go to the
gosh.
next hospital the next day. And it was like this huge ordeal. And my husband was in another remote location skiing. So it took him two
Hmm.
days to get to me because I was
Hmm.
also in a remote location. So yeah, it was pretty traumatic, but
Right.
I've definitely learned a lot from that. And I've been writing about risk mitigation with
Right.
remote adventure travel
Wow.
since then, and
Wow.
want to share what I learned with people that are interested in that type of activity. So some good came out of it.
I
And my
feel like
leg is healed, so I'm good.
there you go. That was the next question I was going to ask,
Yeah.
but I feel like it didn't stop you as well. It didn't feel. I feel like
No,
not at all.
no.
Like
I
you'd
was
still
I
keep
went
traveling.
skiing like yeah, I went skiing I think 11 months after I broke my
That's
leg, and
wow.
you got to get back out there and
Yes,
learn from these things and just keep going.
and it's truly part of
Yeah.
adventure, right? I mean, the adventure and
Yes.
new experiences doesn't always mean good experiences, right? Especially with traveling.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah,
Talk.
and oddly enough, the bad experiences are the ones you probably remember the most, but I think, after the bad is over, you can look back on it and it's like such a vivid memory of like, something that is just so remarkable that you
That's
that you
true.
went through.
Especially because I mean, travels shape us, right? It really does a lot
Yeah,
of the
for
thing.
sure.
Shapes our personality, shapes who we are, adds a little bit more to who we are, and you keep adding on to that. And by the end of how many X number of travels, you're a completely different person. And it
Yes.
goes back to what we said. Like it doesn't mean always good travel. Like it could also
Yeah.
mean that bad experiences. These things also build us. These are the things
Yes.
that you write about, Cheryl. You talk about risk mitigation. You talk about now, you know, uh, lessons and experiences that you've had. And I believe one of the books that you wrote is Experiencing a Tech-Free Travel. 1 year unplugged, I believe is the title of that
Yeah.
book, if I'm not mistaken. And
Hmm.
this is where you
Yeah.
talk about traveling with your family with no technology or no phone, so to speak.
Yes.
These are very very interesting stuff. Like when it's topics and when it comes to traveling as well. But because you not only travel, but you come up with the profound stories behind it and the lessons that you take out of it. Talk to us a bit about this one in particular, and anything else and other lessons that you took from each other as a family.
Yeah, so that book actually, we did not travel. We were actually at home living in
Oh,
Silicon Valley.
okay.
So, but that's okay. So, yeah, we lived with no technology for a year, no cell phones, no computers, no television, no digital cameras, no Wi-Fi, no internet, nothing. And my daughter was 5 at the time. And I think the most profound thing that came out of that, a couple things, was she, after a week or two, I mean, very quickly after getting rid of everything, she became very independent, very much more creative.
Wow.
She was more relaxed.
Hmm.
And I think for kids today, that is just a game changer because
Right.
technology is such a focus that, it is an addiction.
That's
And
true.
to let our brain have relief from that is
Right.
so impactful.
That's true.
So yeah, just seeing the instant change in my daughter at such a young age. And she's taken that with her. She's definitely less, I would say she's just more aware of her use of technology than kids her age,
Of course.
and knows kind of, to put it down every once in a while and give herself a break. And then the second thing, I think it also provided a sense of community in it. We were all also always part of the community, but it provided a smaller network of friends that were very much like, oh, hey, I know you're not online. Do you want me to print out this thing for you and give it to
Wow.
you that I saw, Or I would meet strangers and be like, oh my God, I'm late for something. I don't have a phone. I would
Uh-huh.
say, oh, can I borrow your phone? Like to a stranger. And
Wow.
they would ask me why I don't have a phone. And it would open up this conversation about, technology
I
and how
love
to
it.
minimize your use. So it provided us with such unique experiences. I know it's not sustainable and it's not everyone can do that. It was a very unique situation.
Of course.
But we had started that because we just realized every evening we were sitting on the couch. I was on my laptop, my husband was on his phone, my daughter was watching TV, and there was no
Hmm.
interaction. And we wanted
Hmm.
more from our family, for our family.
Hmm.
So we, unplugged, went and bought a bunch of board games, and basically kind of went back to the 80s and just did everything old school. And it
I
was
love
a
it.
phenomenal experience.
I love it.
Um, but transferring that over to travel,
Yes, I was going to ask that
um,
too.
yeah, I just recently did a press, or I was on an assignment for Matador Network where I did a solo road trip in Wyoming. And in Wyoming, there were a lot of places that I had no cell phone reception.
Right.
And so I had to do things like print out my directions because
Wow.
so I could know where I was going,
Uh-huh.
and stop and ask for help if I didn't know where I was going because I
Mhm.
couldn't rely on my GPS. And it also gave me a lot of time. A lot of the motels that I were staying in didn't have TVs.
Mhm.
So it just gave me time for introspection
Mhm.
that we don't normally have in our day-to-day routines.
Absolutely.
And I brought a journal, and I just was like living in the moment,
That's
and
it.
really enjoyed it. So I think, yeah, being very aware of how technology affects
Mhm.
you and what things maybe you could do to take a break from it every once in a while
Absolutely.
is so important.
It's very important, and I think it's also crucial in the sense of it's nice to take into traveling too. Like you said, it transitions very nicely because it allows you to be in the moment, and I think that's very important.
Yes.
It's one thing to travel and be around and just go around and have these beautiful travel pictures for Instagram, but it's another
Yeah.
thing to be there and soak it in and
Yeah.
actually enjoy that moment, enjoy the experience, because oftentimes we kind of do it for the gram, right? Like
Yeah.
it happens.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
not a strange phenomenon to do
Yeah.
traveling for the gram. Cheryl, talk to
Yeah.
us a little bit about this. How can one
Yeah.
travel and take it all in and be in the moment, maximize everything? What would be your advice?
I was just talking about that on a recent trip. I was on a princess cruise to Alaska with some other journalists,
Oh wow.
and we were on the ship, and I lost my phone. And I wasn't panicked because we hadn't been in port. We were at sea, so I knew it was on the ship somewhere, and someone would eventually turn it in, hopefully.
Mhm.
But we were having this exact conversation that, what would it be like to take a vacation without posting anything to social media? I know there are some people that do that, but the majority of us always, tend to post something.
Mhm.
And for me, it's because I love to share and inspire people like, oh my God, look at this cool thing that I saw. You can do it too, and here's
Mhm.
how. So I think it's tough. I think it's a tough ask to not post it to social media. But I the funny thing is my phone with my
Uh-huh.
camera didn't get turned in for like 24 hours, and
All
while we
right.
were on the cruise. And I
Uh-huh.
knew the next day we were going to port and we were going to see some phenomenal things. And I
Mhm.
was like, shoot, I'm kind of bummed I don't have my camera. And it did make me start thinking about like well, maybe I shouldn't take so many pictures. Maybe I should live more in the moment. And I think that's something that people should think about for
That's it.
sure.
That's it. Just staying
Yeah,
in there. To be clear, we're not telling people to not post, right? Like we're not saying
exactly.
to don't. Of course,
Exactly.
like you said, it's a tough ask to not post. You post it, put it out there, enjoy it because you deserve that trip. You deserve that
Yeah.
travel. You deserve to enjoy it. You deserve. People deserve to see it as well. They'd love to see what's
Yeah.
up with your life. I feel like it's about intention as well, where you're like, hey, I'm
Yes.
traveling. I'm here right now. I'm going to take in this moment, maybe take a few pictures, but 90% of the time, just be in the moment, right? Like make sure
Yes.
that you are soaking it all in. Cheryl, has this been a challenge, so to speak, in the way that you've been through a lot of destinations, you've had a lot of experiences. What would you say would be the number one challenge when it comes to traveling and making sure that not necessarily just about taking photos and soaking the moment in, but challenges in general when it comes to traveling? What would be the number one thing that we should all um, be more aware of when we travel?
Oh gosh, that's a big question.
Big
There are a lot
question.
of
Yeah,
things.
that's a lot. But if you were,
There are a
it's
lot
always
of
interesting
things.
if you were just to pick one. Like I'm gonna travel
Yes.
tomorrow. I'm unprepared.
Hmm.
What would be that
Hmm.
one thing I need to think about?
Hmm. I mean, I think just something that comes to mind
Mhm.
is for me, a big thing. I mean, it depends on where you're going, how long you're going to be
Yes,
gone,
of
how far
course.
you're
Mhm.
going, everything.
Mhm.
But let's say you're going on an international trip, right?
Yes.
It's kind of a long haul trip.
Mhm.
I think the most important thing for me is really to be mindful of what you pack in your carry-on,
That's it. Carry ons.
to
Yep.
be prepared for that, because you could lose your luggage. So you want to make
Mhm.
sure that you have everything in your carry-on that you might need for 2 to 3 days.
Mhm.
So whether that's, if you wear contacts, making sure you pack your glasses, making sure you pack enough contacts, making sure if you take medicine, that you have the medicine,
Mhm.
maybe a change of clothes,
Mhm.
obviously your toothbrush, anything that you might need for 2 to 3 days. Also, you want to make sure that it's condensed because it's in a carry-on. You don't want to carry like a super heavy bulky carry on. So I think that's really important. The other thing that is number
Yes.
one is travel insurance. I
Oh.
never really thought about travel insurance that
Mhm.
much
Mhm.
until I broke my leg. And I assumed that someone else had booked it for me and they didn't. And then
Interesting.
I was like, oh no. So, especially when you travel
Interesting.
internationally, and especially if you're doing any type of adventure travel, definitely get travel insurance. It's not that expensive at
Mhm.
all. I use World Nomads as my travel insurance. They do offer a special package for adventure travel that
Yeah.
covers things that are above and beyond what most people might do on their trips. So that is super important. And then the third thing I would say is also kind of along the lines of risk mitigation is if you're doing any type of tour, whether it's horseback riding or kayaking
Yes.
or anything like that, definitely don't be afraid to ask your tour company or
That's it.
guide what their protocols are for safety,
Of
whether
course.
their guides are certified in CPR and first aid, or what's their evacuation procedures, if you're in an international destination. And, some people don't ask those questions because they're uncomfortable. They don't want to seem rude, but it's well within your right. And if it is a reputable company with a good safety record, they will not hesitate to answer your questions.
Yes.
And if they do hesitate, that's a red flag. And I would,
Mhm.
really do your research. Don't just assume that they're the professionals and they're going to do everything right. Really know what you're getting into.
That's it. That's very important. I love all that tips,
Yeah.
especially the travel insurance one. I think it is very
Yeah.
important. We overlook it too
Yeah.
much. And now that I think about it, now
Yeah.
that you mention it, it's like, why not, right? Like
Yeah.
it couldn't hurt. It's like you said, it's
Yes.
fairly affordable for many
Yes.
places, for most places, but also asking
Yeah.
questions. I think
Yeah.
if anything, not just asking questions. Of course, it's fundamental to ask questions. You need to ask for directions. You need to be able
Yeah.
to approach people, ask questions. But I think asking questions also in general about the place, about the culture, about the history. I think that is
Yes.
one great way to
Yes.
soak it in and to be in the moment of your travels. Of course, the
Yes.
website is Sharael.com, spelled SHARAEL.com.
Yes.
And there you can find Cheryl's travel newsletter, which is my trending travel newsletter. You can everywhere you can see, travel perks, travel tips and hacks, cheap flights and everything. And of course, Cheryl, we'd love to learn more about you. We'd love to connect. Where else can we find you?
You know what? Everything's on my website. So go to the website. You can find my social media and, like you said, my newsletter, all my latest articles that I've written. So it's all there.
Fantastic. To all our audience and
Yeah.
listeners out there, make sure to check out that website. Make sure to check out Cheryl, connect with her, and, like, subscribe to her newsletter. Go find that. And, like, if you love traveling, you're going to enjoy what Cheryl is writing and talking about. Cheryl, one last thing to leave behind the audience. What would it be? Take us home.
One last thing to leave behind. Don't wait. Get out there and
That's it.
travel.
I love it.
The younger you start traveling, the more memories you're going to have as you grow older. So just do it. Just get out there, see the world,
Fantastic.
and learn all you can about different cultures and countries and traditions. And it's amazing.
It is amazing. And Cheryl, thank you so much for sharing your stories and your insights with us. We will truly take it with us in our travels, in life, and in general. Cheryl, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
To all our audience and listeners out there, I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Thank you for watching this, and we will see you on the next one. Bye bye.
All right, so here's the thing. We try to get a little bit better every day, but we can't do it without you. So if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. And if you have any comments, just leave them in the space under.